What's going on, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Nerdwide podcast. I'm your host, Tyler Haynes, with my good friend and co-host, who I would think would survive the Triangle of Sadness, Mr. Chris Rivers.
How's it going, Tyler?
It's going. Since for the past 4 or 5 days, I've been dealing with the sinus issues. Like I can feel my postnasal drip just back in my throat, just constantly going. So if I'm drinking an excessive amount of water, that's why I'm trying not to cough and I'm trying to keep talking. I'm feeling better, but still congested, and I don't like it. It's this Tennessee weather where it's 30 degrees in the morning and 60 and 70 degrees in the afternoon, and it throws my whole system through a whack. You think living here my whole life I'd be used to it, but apparently that's not how bodies work. So, how have you
Yeah,
been?
the um, doing all right. Yeah, I went to work the other day, and it was when I left for work. I think it was 78, and then that night when we left, it was 40.
Yeah, our bodies don't like that, and I'm not a big fan. I mean, then we had
Uh,
that pressure system come through Friday and bring all that wind and storms in, and or I guess storms if you want to call it that, but a bunch of wind, a lot of wind. So
Yeah, it got to 70 miles an hour in some places.
yeah, just a
Yeah,
little bit, just nothing
a
crazy.
little bit. Nah.
Uh, Quick housekeeping before we jump into everything. There will not be a traditional episode of the Nerdwide podcast next week because it is the Oscars. We are still in discussions on what exactly we are going to do. I've just recently found out it is 3.5 hours ish long. So, and I've got a hard bedtime. So we'll see what we do.
And you were saying you've never watched an Oscars
No.
telecast before.
So this is going to be a first for a lot of things, and I'm even having to push back the finale of The Last of Us. So the Oscars should know.
I uh, I had a couple of friends that years ago, every year they would have an Oscar party. And they would even have the printout sheets of the nominees so you could make your predictions,
Mm.
see who won, and
I know the kind of funny podcast. They used to do something like that. Like they'd all dress up and things like that, and like have like bingo and bets on who's going to win, and just among themselves and
yeah.
who gets the most points and stuff like that. That might be something to look into because that could be fun. Just to have because Super Bowl's over. I mean, only big sporting things are going on at the beginning of March at least. So if I like this thing, Chris, because we've watched all of them, but technically three, I think. Avatar. There's the woman one. I forget what it is,
Women
and
talking.
Women Talking, and then Tar. We pulled an audible this week, ladies and gentlemen, because Chris got Fableman and sent it to me, and of course we've been wanting to watch that one above pretty much all the other ones. And I got halfway through Tar, and I've never done this in my life. I said, okay, no more. I can't do it anymore. I literally got halfway through it, and I was like, okay, this has got to be almost over. And I pulled it up, it was halfway, and I said, nope, it's unwatchable in my opinion. And I'm glad we pulled an audible, so because it was
It
like it. There's really no story. Halfway
where
through, I was like, I don't even see a story here.
where was your limit? How much time left would you have still sat there and said, "Okay, I'm just going to finish it"?
If it had 15, 30 minutes, I would have, but it still had like an hour and 15. I was like, I can't. There was no way. And like I paid was $5 to rent it or whatever, and I was like, I
Oh,
wish I would have refunded my money, but since I already watched half of it, I don't think you get a refund on it, which is what it is. But I, you know, wish Kate Blanchett the best. Just hope that movie does not do well, because that was. Listen, I know coming into this, a lot of these movies aren't going to be my thing, right? And that's the fun of it, watching these things you wouldn't normally watch. But that one really cemented that in. If we started with that, that would have been, I'd be like, okay, we need to do something different here. But we've got some really good movies, which of course we are going to talk about some of them. Triangle of Sadness is one that I thought was a pretty decent movie. The Fabelmans, I've got a lot of things to say about that one. But quick housekeeping. We talked about the Oscars next week. If you enjoy the show, make sure you leave us a thumbs up on YouTube or give us a good rating for whatever podcasting app you use. Don't forget to subscribe to either our YouTube or podcasting service of your choice. If you don't enjoy what you see or hear, make sure you leave us a comment and let us know what we can improve, what you didn't like, what we can fix, things like that. If you don't leave us a comment, we don't know how to fix it if you don't tell us. If you want to do more, you can always go to patreon.com/nerdwide. 3 different tiers for 3 different monetary values, all of them leading up to you essentially letting us know what you want us to watch, read, talk about, do, play, any of that kind of stuff. It's all up to you. First tier, of course, gets early access to the episodes before they go live to the public. Let's see. Chris, have you been watching anything TV-wise?
Nothing special to speak of.
I'm the same boat. This week's been I've still been catching up on The Flash. I think I've watched the 2nd and 3rd episode. I've got 2 more to catch up on before I'm fully caught up. And then Big Bang. And I'm telling you, season 8 now. I told you 2 seasons a week at this point. Loving every bit of it. So Penny and Leonard are engaged. Penny is now short-haired Penny and is doing the she just started her sales rep stuff. So I'm still early season 8.
Right.
I'm trying to think. Kutherpali is with, what's the redheaded girl's name?
Oh God.
I know, it's Emily. So
Yeah.
And don't know if that's gonna be the one for him or what. I still have 4 seasons to go. So a lot of crazy things can happen. Professor Proton's died in the show, not in real life, but in the show. So that was kind of sad. That was a good episode.
Kind of funny because you're going through Big Bang and I'm keeping up week to week with young Sheldon. So
so is it? So there's a lot that they talk about his youth and stuff like that. Is it pretty accurate to the show? Like, how old is he in the show now?
In young Sheldon, he's supposed to be 13, I think, right now.
So his dad's still alive then?
His dad's still alive. He's in college.
Okay.
So they do some things differently than what he talks about in Big Bang, only because they reason that, as adults, we misremember things.
That's a good way to
from our youth.
Do that.
Yeah. So they're like, it's not exactly how he remembers it.
That's smart. So what you're telling me is I need to watch that when I get done with Big Bang.
I enjoy it.
Okay.
I think young Sheldon's a bit better from Sheldon's perspective in the early seasons. But as the seasons have gone on, I think I like the other cast of characters more.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
So I'll check into that then. I'm trying to think if there's anything else I've been watching. Animal Control, I think I'm about done watching it. I think we're 3 or 4 episodes in, and it's not grabbing me. Jamie likes it, but it's just not grabbing my attention right now. And I think that's it, other than The Last of Us, which we've got Superman and Lois here in 2 weeks. No, that's next week. Yeah, 2 weeks then. The 14th. It's Super Tuesdays with the other one, Gotham Knights.
Yeah.
So, a lot of things to talk about off air on that one, but that we have talked about off air. But a show that is really good, The Last of Us. Let's do our full recap here and full on spoilers for episode 7, Left Behind. Of course, this is covering the DLC of the game, which I knew what happened in it. Some things have changed, which isn't anything crazy from what I've heard and read. But we're going to tvline.com by Kimberly Roots for the recap. Ellie drags Joel to an abandoned house and gets him set up on a mattress on the basement floor. He's awake but doing very badly, burning up with fever and writhing in pain as she presses on his wound to stop the bleeding. He begs her to go north, go to Tommy, and grabs her roughly by the coat to drive home his point. She uses colorful language to tell him she doesn't agree with his plan, but then pushes at her what's left of his might, which sends her toppling backwards. And she doesn't say anything more as she covers him with his coat and then walks upstairs. Joel cries a little as she goes, which at first I interpreted, okay, I don't care about your interpretation. But we do see Joel crying. We got a lot more Joel and Ellie of now than I was expecting us to get, which I was a-okay with the way they did this. Um, well, the action then swiftly switches to a flashback to Ellie's time at the federal school after Ellie beats up a girl who steals her Walkman and teases about her friend who isn't there anymore. She winds up in Captain Kwong's office. He notes that she has been put in solitary confinement 3 times, but doesn't seem to have changed her outlook on the following rules. So he calmly outlines 2 futures for her after school: life as a federal officer and life as a non officer. The former is brighter. He says there's a leader in you, and one day it could be your turn, which is also a little what do they call that? Alliteration, alluding to the future of the second game. Just before 2 the next morning, someone sneaks into Ellie's room via the window and puts a hand over her mouth. It's Riley, Ellie's best friend, played by Euphoria's Storm Reed. Riley ran away 3 weeks ago before without a word. She said, I joined the Fireflies, proving it by showing Ellie her gun. She invites Ellie to come with her for a few hours and have the best night of your life. Stella is not happy about this scene. Ellie protests, but then gets dressed and follows Riley out the window. Their evening brings them to the 7th floor of a building where Riley is surprised to find the corpse of a man who's overdosed on pills and drugs. She says, this guy was not here yesterday, given the setting nonchalantly. The floor beneath him gives away, dropping him several floors and scaring the stuffing out of me. When the girls recover from a surprise, they grab the bottle and head to the roof to drink the dead man's booze. It scared Jamie. Like, Jamie jumped pretty big on this scene. It didn't get me. Jump scares don't get me.
Well, you hear the floor starting to creak, so you know something's coming.
Right. So, which this is the only episode solely written by Neil Druckmann, by the way. So this is fully his baby, on as far as the story goes for this one. They arrive at a shopping center. As they swig and chat, we learn that Riley's parents are dead. The Fireflies recruited her one night when she snuck out of the dorm, and it happened while Ellie was in the hole while she was in solitary. With Kwong's comments in her mind, Ellie sticks up for Fedra, saying that the agency kind of holds everything together, but Riley doesn't want to argue, so she leaves to the next building and announces that they're on a mission. They arrive at a shopping center, but Ellie balks, saying that it's sealed off because it's full of infected. But Riley explains that it's not, and now it has electricity again because Fedra connected a nearby block and the mall benefited. She tells her, tonight I'm going to show you the 4 wonders of the mall. As Ellie is dazzled by the lit up storefronts and suddenly moving escalators. Which is crazy because you got to think, they don't know what escalators are. Because that's just not something that's in the middle of a city. Right. Some stores are looted, others are not. The Victoria's Secret, for instance, is still well stocked. Riley talks about how uncomfortable the bras and such look, and she laughs as she imagines Ellie wearing them. Little hint here. But after Riley walks on, Ellie looks at her reflection in the lingerie shop's windows and fixes her hair a little. Let's see, scenes like this interlude are good reminders. Riley has Ellie close her eyes so she can lead her hand in hand to the next surprise, the mall's carousel, which still runs. Ellie is beside herself and her eyes go even wider when Riley turns the thing on. They climb on side-by-side horses and ride, passing the bottle back and forth until the carousel grinds to a halt. Riley is about to dismount and fix it when Ellie stops her with a plea, come back to the Federal School and help Ellie make things better from the inside. Riley won't do it. She turns 17 the next month, which is when you get your post-school assignment, and she already knows she was put on sewage detail. Standing guard while people shovel shit, that's what they think of me, she says, explaining that she panicked and ran. Ellie is sympathetic, but she makes a point of adding, I would have gotten it back then too, you know. Riley earnestly says Ellie is the one thing she misses, then asks if Ellie is ready for the next 3 wonders. She says, I'm on a magic horse with a million lights. I don't know how it's supposed to get any better. They take photos in a photo booth with us directly from the game, and Riley gives Ellie the strip afterward. Riley blows Ellie's mind anew with the arcade, which is fully operational, and then they play Mortal Kombat 2, unaware that a few stores away, a very fungused up person, that's a weird adjective there, wakes... Fungi. Is feeling the vibrations of their movements via tendril, and finally in a kitchen behind the food court, Riley gives Ellie a gift, no pun intended, volume 2. Which is, the same one that she jokes with Joel with. They giggle at some of the entries and write, this is so pure in my notes, but it all comes to an abrupt halt when Ellie sees a pile of pipe bombs in the corner and quickly ascertains that Riley made them kill soldiers. But Riley swears she never let the Fireflies use the explosives on Ellie, and you think they're going to listen to you, Ellie spits back. which is very true because you were just a 17-year-old grunt at this point. Why would they listen to anything you say? The heartache continues when Ellie makes to leave. Riley runs after her, blurting out that she's being sent to a post in the Atlanta quarantine zone the next day. I asked if you could join so we could go together, she asked, but Marlene said no. Riley planned the whole evening because I want to see you and I want to say goodbye. By this point, Ellie is teary-eyed, and so is Riley. Eventually, they wind up at a Halloween store, which Riley softly points out is the last wonder on the list. Riley tries to explain why she wants to be a Firefly. They chose me. I matter to them. Ellie looks hurt by this. She says, you matter to me first. But she adds that she forgives Riley and she'll miss her. Which, with things eased a bit, they both don giant masks and dance to a cover, I've Got You, Babe. But it's all too much for Ellie. She whispers, don't go, as she takes off her mask, and Riley responds, okay. Then Ellie kisses her and immediately apologizes for what Riley wonders, and they both giggle nervously. Ellie wonders what they'll do next. We're going to figure it out, Riley whispers. Let's see. And you might want to get on that, ladies, because there's a clicker coming straight for it. It wasn't a clicker, it's just infected. Riley shoots the infected, which buys them about a second to run. There's a lot of personal things in here. Then it gets Ellie, who stabs it repeatedly, but the cuts don't seem to slow it down at all. It's on top of her when Riley, who's come back to herself after that first attack, hits it with a baseball bat, stunning it for the nanosecond it needs for Ellie to gouge in the head with her knife. Riley is just looking at her friend's arm. Ellie has been bitten. As Ellie screams in horror, Riley quickly cries and holds up her hand. She has also been bitten. Ellie breaks a lot of stuff in anger while Riley sits on the Halloween store's floor with her back against the counter. They decide there are two possible ways to go: kill themselves with a gun or just wait until the cordyceps take over. Riley says, we don't quit, whether it's 2 minutes or 2 days. We don't give up, and I don't want to give that up. She takes Ellie's hand, and they're both crying as Ellie puts her head on her friend's shoulder, and Riley pulls her in for a tight embrace. We don't witness how the girls' time together actually ends. We know, of course, that Ellie survives. The bite on her arm is the one we've seen healed over several times since the show began. But the next thing we see is Ellie in the present ransacking the house's kitchen for anything to help Joel, and she miraculously finds something. She returns downstairs, kneels near him, and holds his hand. He looks at her intently and squeezes her back. Turns out Ellie found a needle and thread in the drawer while Joel groans in pain. She pulls up his shirt and gets to work sewing up his wound. Good episode. I think it would have worked for me better if it was episode 6 and not episode 7. So right after Sam and Henry died, I felt like this would have been a perfect time to, like kind of like a palate cleanser a little bit, and then do the whole Tommy episode, then him getting shot and stuff. But that's just me. I don't get to make these. I'm not the showrunner, so I don't get to make these kind of decisions. But personally, that's where I would have put it.
There's a couple of things though that I saw when watching it. First off, there's no way that glass countertop is holding both of them.
Correct. When they were dancing and everything, I was thinking that the whole time. I was like, oh, yeah, someone's about to fall through. But no, I guess 20 years is going to hold it.
and you can speak to this more so than me, but when she's stitching him up, I was thinking, right, that's great for the break in the skin.
Mm-hmm.
But if he's got any damage internally, he's still going to bleed.
Correct. He's going to just have internal bleeding instead of external. So, whole slew of problems that happens there.
The odds are he has something damaged internally. Yeah. That was the bottom part of a handle of a baseball bat.
Yeah. So. Which is coming back, by the way. Finally at spring training, the Pirates have lost everything but one of their spring training game. As you'd imagine. Sorry. Just a quick tangent there.
Spring training. Now, I don't know how this plays out. Well, you haven't played the DLC of this either, have you?
Mm-mm.
So I'm not sure. Do you think we'll find out what happened?
Oh no! So that they kept that with the DLC, like it's left up for you to decide, pretty much. Okay. So when it ended on the episode, that's when it ended on the game. Okay. So apparently there were more clickers than just the one, but as far as the story, it was pretty spot on with it of what happened.
I kind of feel like when Ellie mentions, I can't remember which episode, was it 5? When she lets Joel know that she's killed somebody before. I kind of feel like,
I think it was Riley. Like
yeah,
what I feel like what happened was they were both sitting there waiting to turn because it could take 3 minutes to 3 hours for them to fully turn. I imagine they both sat there and Riley started to turn. Ellie still hasn't turned, and she had to kill Riley or else been killed because they said the whole thing. We don't give up, and so she probably had to kill her, and then just kept waiting and said, "Oh, okay, so I'm not turning." And then she went to Marlene, or maybe they had the conversation together of, "Okay, well, let's go to Marlene," and that's how it happened. I don't know, but I do know I do think that Ellie did kill Riley though.
yeah,
So and maybe had
yeah.
to go explain to Marlene what happened. I don't know.
And that could also be why she wasn't willing to leave Joel.
Mm-hmm.
One other reason, because that would essentially be her killing him as well.
Yeah,
And she's not going to kill two people that she cared
yeah.
about.
We don't give up either. So I think
Right.
that's what the whole thing she was trying to drive home with that too. But man, these next two episodes, especially the one tonight, episode 8, the penultimate one, it's going to be really good. Troy Baker's finally in it. We have still not seen Ashley Johnson. So
She
what?
was on the cast list for this episode.
So that's what I thought she was going to be in.
IMDb.
Well, it's IMDb. That's because if you think about it, this should have been one that the flashback episode should have been where her mom is in because she's playing Ellie's mom. So
Hmm.
at this point, I'm like, I don't know when else. Maybe in the finale at a certain point, but as a flashback or to Marlene, maybe.
Unless they cut it.
Oh, that's a good point too. Which would suck because everybody else from the game has been in the show, and then you cut your Ellie voice actors. Oh, that would suck. But I'm really excited. So we got Troy Baker for looks like a good majority of this episode. This one's going to end, and I don't think our buddy Grant's been texting me too every week because he's never played the games and he's watching the show and he's loving it. Oh, he's loving it. And I said, dude, you are not ready for these next two episodes because it's going to blow your mind.
Yeah.
And apparently Bella Ramsey said something about the finale. Oh, let's see if I can find that real quick. Apparently people didn't like on Last of Us finale. Oh, she says massively divisive on the finale. She says, let me see if I can find. It's going to divide people massively, massively. Um, so I don't
Well,
know.
there shouldn't be a huge surprise because we know that they're setting up the second game.
Right.
So,
So I mean, and it covers the whole first game. So I don't see them changing the ending. So
right.
I hope she's talking about people who haven't played the game
Yeah.
because it changes a whole narrative on its head on the show, on the in the game, and we'll talk about it after when we do the episode because there's a certain plot point that people keep bringing up that I can't say because it'll spoil some of the ending, but which I'm curious. I think that's what she's talking about though, because X Y Z. Anyways, that was Last of Us Left Behind.
So it won't be divisive if you've played the game.
Mm.
If you haven't, it could be divisive.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking on. So I'm curious to see what Grant and Jamie say about it then, because this show goes places and game goes places. I don't have any news this week, like on for games or movies that I could find, and I looked a lot, ladies and gentlemen, but I could not find anything. But we do have two movies to talk about, which we'll get to after releases this week. Thursday, March 9th, You Season 4 Part 2 drops on Netflix for all you lovers. And that is all I've got.
You, Jamie recommended that show to me, by the way, and I haven't
Oh,
started watching
you
it
need
yet.
to. From what I've heard, it's just delicious. It's just great. And I'm like, I just never got into it. I never watched it, so I didn't get into it. So that's on me, though.
Did you watch any other movies or just the
Mm.
two that we watched? The two
Just
and a
the
half
just the
we
two and a
watched.
half that we watched. I didn't. It was a busy week at work, so I didn't really.
Yeah. So I watched a couple in addition.
What
First
you
up,
got for us?
we got 1999's Office Space.
I don't think
Mike
I've seen that.
Judge's Office Space. Oh, it's great. It's
Hmm.
great. I gave it 4 stars out of 5.
Really?
Yeah. Um, Very cool film. Gary Cole, Jennifer Aniston, Ron Livingston. Check it out. People old like me love that movie. And then speaking of old, from 19, I think this was 1938, The Adventures of Robin Hood with Errol Flynn.
I have seen that one.
Errol Flynn, Olivia de Havilland gave it 4.5 out of 5.
Hmm.
So, yeah, good movies. I will go ahead and show the box here for a film we're going to talk about, The Fabelmans.
Were you just out and about and picked it up, or?
I ordered it on
Oh,
Amazon. I was just like, you know what? Let's put it in the collection. Gotta have it. And then that got me the digital code that I could get to use so
well,
we could watch it.
I appreciate it because we're going to talk about some fun things with it.
All right. So let me get this pulled up here. I'm woefully unprepared. Triangle of Sadness, I'm definitely going to have to focus on on a synopsis because, wow. It was interesting. I'll go ahead and say this before I get to the synopsis. I gave this 4 stars.
4 stars. Okay.
Um, and I'll run through the plot and then we'll talk about it. It's in 3 parts. 3 parts, I think. Part 1 was Carl and Yaya. Carl, a model, and Yaya, a model and influencer. And very quickly, Carl is played by Harris Dickinson, who we have seen before. And I'm trying to. He was in Where the Crawdads Sing.
Who was he in that?
And he was one of her 2 guys. I'm trying to remember which one he was. Remember there was I think he was the local guy that
Chase Andrews. I'm trying to remember which
yeah,
one Chase was.
I think he was the local jerk
Okay.
that was seeing her on the side. I believe. And then of course Yaya is played by Charlby Dean, the late Charlby Dean, who we've seen before on Black Lightning as Cyanide.
Mm-hmm.
So, Carl, a model, and Yaya, a model and influencer, are dating. Carl resents Yaya for expecting him to pay for meals even though she earns more than he does. They often bicker about money and gender roles. Yaya admits she's in a relationship with Carl for the engagement it earns them on social media, and that she seeks to become a trophy wife. But Carl declares that she will come to love him. Yeah, she basically says at one point that she has to marry someone who can take care of her because if something happens to her modeling and influencing career, she
That's it.
has nothing. Yeah.
What a life.
There's not much to say about that part. It's basically them going back and forth and arguing a lot. Part 2 takes place
Carl
on
doesn't
the
like
yacht.
feminist. That's pretty much what I got out of that. He does not like
Yeah.
feminist.
There's little things each of them say that you're like, okay, I can see your point there.
Which a lot of these, like this part and the second part, allude to a lot of the things that happened in part 3, which I thought was kind of cool. Which, if you think back and think about it,
yeah, and the whole movie is about the class system. The part 2, the yacht. And by the way, the yacht was the Christina O. originally, which was owned by Aristotle Onassis, who married Jacqueline Kennedy after a few years after JFK's assassination. So,
that's pretty cool.
Little trivia. Carl and Yaya are invited on a luxury cruise aboard a super yacht in exchange for its social media promotion. Among the wealthy guests are the Russian oligarch Dmitry and his wife Vera, who really is the linchpin in everything that happens as we hurtle toward the end. The elderly couple Clementine and Winston, who've made their fortune manufacturing weapons, they get theirs. Therese, a wheelchair user who's only capable of speaking a single sentence in German following a stroke, and Yarmo, a lonely tech millionaire who flirts with Yaya. The guests luxuriate on the yacht, oblivious to the crew working to meet their every need and whim. The head of staff, Paula, demands they obey the guest's absurd request, including having every crew member swim in the sea. When the kitchen crew is ordered to swim, the chef says this means the food will go bad, but the kitchen crew is ordered to go anyway. Meanwhile, the yacht's captain, Thomas Smith, really, spends his
Yeah.
time drunk in his cabin. Paula gets Thomas to sober up and attend the captain's dinner. As the yacht passes through a storm, several guests become violently seasick, vomit, or have diarrhea, possibly due to the food, and panic breaks out. Drunken Thomas and Dmitri debate in favor of communism and capitalism, respectively, over the intercom. Several guests are injured as the storm tosses the ship, the sewage floods, and the power goes out. When morning arrives, pirates attack, killing Clementine and Winston with a grenade and capsizing the yacht. This part is the first part was kind of difficult to get through for me, just because it was these two people just talking, and you don't really have a strong connection to the characters yet.
Yeah.
This is where it kind of kicks off. Yeah, Vera, Dimitri's wife, is the one who insists all the crew members
Mm-hmm.
should go swim in the sea. So she's the reason that the food goes bad, which starts everyone vomiting later
Everybody.
on at the dinner, which means no one is steering the ship and keeping it as stable as possible in rough seas, which leads to them sort of drifting
Mm-hmm.
later on.
I thought
And
that scene was very well done, like setting up the waves being crazy, because like you can
uh,
even see Woody Harrelson, and I forget who was the first captain. They were like standing at an angle,
yeah,
as the ship was
yeah,
rocking, and so was the crew. I was like, oh, that's really cool and very well done that they're doing it that way. So
hmm yeah. It's that was one of the first things that I noticed about it. Once it started to kind of lurch a little bit,
hmm
was
well,
the way that
they mentioned it the day before that a storm was coming in, or they had to because they needed the captain to be there. Paula makes an offhand comment. She said something like, there's a storm coming and we need you or something like that. That's why we can't. Oh, it's why I couldn't do dinner on that date because there was a
yeah,
storm coming in. But I guess I did it anyways.
yeah, and also during that stretch, you get the I started to say the Churchills, but their last name's not Churchill. Winston and Clementine, the weapons manufacturers, getting blown up by a grenade. It's so funny because
Oh,
you hear it hit the deck, and she picks it up and goes, "Oh, look, it's one of ours."
right.
And he has to take his glasses and look at it, and it just, and then he's like, "No!" And about that time, you see,
Yeah, it zooms out and it small explosion, then a big explosion after some gunfire and stuff. That was very cool how they did it that way.
I do want to check one little thing here, um, because Woody Harrelson's character um, is called Thomas Smith, and I believe Edward Smith was the captain of the Titanic,
Oh,
which of course sank at sea.
right.
So, and it's funny too. They have this huge, debate between Dimitri and Woody Harrelson's character, Captain Smith, and getting brought up in that are the Kennedys. And at one point, Woody Harrelson says our government was behind the assassinations of the Kennedys and
Hmm.
Martin Luther King Jr. and Malcolm X, and he has stuck to his story for years that his father, Woody Harrelson's father, was one of the assassins of JFK. That he was in Dealey Plaza that day, and he was one of the triggermen. Um, so it's interesting that they had that dialogue in there. I wonder if he was the reason that they added it,
Right.
maybe. But that scene then sets up part three on the island. And no, Leonardo DiCaprio does not show up. Um, that was technically the beach, but then if you combine the beach and Shutter Island, you know. A small group of survivors consisting of Carl, Yaya, Dmitri, Therese, Paula, Jarmo, ship mechanic Nelson, whom Dmitri accuses of being one of the pirates, and cleaning woman Abigail manage to escape to an island. At first, Paula continues to order Abigail to service the crew's guests. When it becomes clear Abigail's the only one with survival skills, such as catching fish and building fires, she usurps command by withholding food. As the survivors bond and come to terms with their situation, Abigail gains power, getting her own private bed inside a lifeboat, and coercing Carl into a sexual relationship in exchange for Carl getting special privileges and food. Yaya grows jealous while Carl considers leaving her for Abigail. Jarmo kills a wild donkey by smashing it with a rock, which Dimitri and Nelson celebrate. Yaya decides to hike to the other side of the island, and Abigail volunteers to go with her despite Carl's concerns. They discover a beachside elevator and realize they've been stranded near a luxury resort. Back at the camp, Therese encounters a beach vendor but is unable to communicate her situation. Yaya celebrates finding the elevator, but Abigail hesitates to enter. She then prepares to attack Yaya with a rock, but hesitates when the oblivious Yaya offers to help Abigail get better work, such as being Yaya's assistant. Elsewhere, Carl frantically runs through the jungle, following Yaya and Abigail towards the beach, and that's the end of the movie. It ends there. We don't know what happens.
You would think if you would hear explosions and stuff on that island, which of course we don't know how big it is, but you would think that somebody would have, from the luxury resort or that town or city or anything, would have went to the other side of the island and, checked for survivors or anything like that. That's the only thing that's not really believable to me. But so Nelson was definitely a pirate, though. We find out because they're calling not Yarmo but Dimitri racist and all this other stuff. And he's like, no, I worked on the engine room. You guys never saw me, kind of scenario. But then it turns out, sure enough, he was a pirate.
Yeah. In fact, you hear. I don't think she's on screen when you hear it. But Paula even says something to the effect of, "It's a big ship. We don't all see each other."
Right.
And it's like, he was one of the pirates. But the ending has been called Sopranos-like, where it just goes off and it's like, okay, whatever you want to have happen is what happened.
Which I think is a cop-out.
I think at my first reaction when Yaya, she still got her back to Abigail, and she offers her the job, and I'm like, oh no, don't do that. She's been the help. She's been the help for all this time, and now she's in charge. I think she hit her with a rock.
See, I don't know what. Yeah. Well, the way she hesitated though, so I don't know. Maybe she turned around and saw her, and then she came clean. But I don't know because they were talking about coming clean to Yaya anyways. So I really don't know. I don't know. Yeah, I think she killed her, and then Carl finds her, and that's about it. But
yeah,
I thought someone was going to come out of that elevator at any time though.
Yeah. It was, it's so. I always wonder on these type movies, and I know it's written for them to overcome something, but they climb this mountain. It's not. It's more than a hill, to get over there. And I'm thinking to myself, if there's any other life set up on this island, it's gonna be near the edge, right?
Right.
Like you're gonna have some access to the beach. Why don't people just go around the edge of the island?
Never understood that. Like, why not just like even if you have to swim around the edge, just swim around some of it. Like if it's too treacherous, or whatever. I've never understood any of that before. So
it's like let's go over the big mountain that we could fall down.
Right. And being laborious to climb and everything. And Yaya even left. What's her name? Abigail. At a certain point, I was like, okay, so Abigail is now hallucinating and something's about to happen. But no, it was real. I was like, oh, okay.
Yep.
So I gave this one a 3.5. It was they named it a drama comedy, but more so on the drama than it was the comedy, which was fine. But it wasn't a unwatchable movie. It's been kind of like all the other ones to me. It tells a good story. Um, I, I hated that some of the characters we kept were who they were. Like Woody Harrelson, I think would have been fun to keep on the island.
Yeah,
But I
yeah.
guess they did that for Abigail to kind of keep that whole thing going. And then I rather kept the one of the stewards. I forget what her name was. Ludmilla,
Um,
played by Carolina Jennings. No, Alicia Erickson. She was the one that they wanted to get in the water.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah,
I wish they would have kept her because like they kind of in the trailer they kind of kept her prominent. So I was like, okay, we're gonna keep her around a little bit, but no, they just people died and poor Vera, Dimitri's wife, he starts looting her dead body. He's sad a little bit, and then he starts taking off her jewelry. I mean, to
yeah.
be fair, she can't use it. So,
Right, right.
but
I think they could have justified Woody Harrelson's captain making it to the island because he didn't seem like the type that was going to fight to stay in
right,
charge.
that's a good point too.
Right.
He was
He
just
would
like,
have just
I
been
really
like,
don't care.
yeah,
Don't know how he stayed captain over that big mega yacht. The one that cracked me up that I don't even see listed right here on IMDb, but the lady with the sales comments cracked me up the whole time. She's like, "Oh, can you have someone clean the sails?" And he's like, "Well, ma'am, we're a motorboat." And she
yeah,
said, "Yes, but," and she goes, "Magnus." He goes, "Didn't the brochure say something about have the sails?" He said, "Yes." And she said, "Well, Magnus says they're sails." And he looks at the first mate and goes, "All right, we'll clean the sails. We'll have someone
yeah,
do that." I was like, God, it just shows the rich mindset of people. And
yeah.
she's like, I noticed the sails were dirty. And I'm like, huh.
What
Oh,
sales?
yeah. It's just Woody Harrelson's faces that made me laugh that whole time.
And really quick, we should. One of the interesting points of this that really touches on the class system. Um, Carl goes to Paula and complains that one of the crew members
Mm-hmm.
is shirtless and smoking on the deck, all because Yaya's paying attention to him.
Right.
And he doesn't think anything else about it. And then as he's walking the deck at one point, he sees the guy being escorted off.
He got
He got
fired.
fired.
Well, I mean, to be fair,
Right.
the guy was trying to provoke a reaction. So,
Well, he got one.
yeah, he got one and then some.
All right. Next up, we got the Fabelmans. I gave this 4.5.
I did too.
Yeah.
Loved this movie.
Yeah, it's got a great cast. It's
Mm-hmm.
got Gabriel LaBelle is the main one that plays Sammy through most of it. Michelle Williams plays uh, the mom. Um, Mitzi, is that
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mitzi Fableman.
Mitzi. And Paul Dano
Paul
um,
Dano, the
played.
Riddler.
Yeah, let's see. Paul Dano plays Bert. The name's changed. I've
Mm-hmm.
read up on Spielberg's family now, and I'm like, I keep wanting to use their real names. Seth Rogen plays Benny.
I did not realize he was in this movie, by the way.
Yeah, yeah. Judd Hirsch is in here as Uncle Boris, uh, who I wish we'd seen more of, but after reading the article you sent me, makes sense that we
Yeah,
didn't.
that was a reason.
Spielberg only met his uncle twice in his entire life. But I don't think there was anyone else. David Lynch plays John Ford. Greg Grunberg
Mm-hmm.
is the co-creator of Hogan's Heroes in this. And Crystal played Benny the Monkey. So
Yeah,
that's important. We don't want
famous
to leave out.
monkey.
All right, so we're going to run through the synopsis here real quick. It's not too long, so we'll get through here. And then we'll give our thoughts. On the night of January the 10th, 1952, in Haddon Township, New Jersey, Jewish couple Mitzi and Bert Fableman take their young son Sammy to see his first film.
I thought we were
Cecil
watching
B.
Batman for a minute.
Yeah, yeah, like okay, all right. Have
Alleyway. We're talking about a theater. Oh yeah, we're watching Batman.
you ever danced with the devil in the pale moonlight?
Right.
Cecil B. DeMille's The Greatest Show on Earth. Dazzled by a train scene, Sammy asks for a model set for Hanukkah, which he crashes late one night. Mitzi, understanding Sammy's intentions, allows him to shoot another crash scene using Bert's 8mm camera. Sammy soon begins filming regularly, sometimes involving his younger sisters Reggie, Natalie, and Lisa. Bert's offered a new job in Phoenix, Arizona, and he and the family moved there in early 1957. At Mitzi's insistence, Bert's best friend and business partner, Benny Louie, goes too.
I instantly knew
Uh,
something was going on there. Like
yeah,
that was a pretty easy tell. At first, I was like, oh, okay, she's. So I was like, okay, you can't just leave your best friend. He's been doing this
yeah,
forever. You can't just leave him. And I
yeah,
was like, hmm, something's going on
yeah,
here. A little fishy.
definitely. Yeah, it was telegraphed early on. Years later, teenage Sammy continues making films with his friends and the Boy Scouts, during which he begins utilizing post-production effects and subsequently earns a badge in photography. Yeah, that's a great scene. He needs it to look like the guns are actually firing,
Hmm.
so he pokes holes in the film
Smart.
so the
Like
light.
this was very well done. Like on a lot of, I mean, acting was great. The cinematography was really cool. Going back and seeing like these early little films were pretty cool. Which a lot of them were like scene to scene what he had back then.
Hmm.
So I thought it was really cool.
Later, the Fabelmans, including Benny, take a camping trip with Sammy, capturing footage of their vacation. Shortly afterwards, Mitzi's mother dies, leaving her especially distraught. Providing him with film editing equipment, Bert suggests Sammy turn the camping trip footage into a film to cheer Mitzi up. Sammy objects over the scheduling of his next film, but Bert, who sees his passion for film as simply a hobby, argues the home movie's more important. The next morning, the Fablemans receive a surprise visit from Mitzi's uncle Boris, a former lion tamer and film worker. That night, he speaks with Sammy about compromising his family with art, telling him that both aspects will continue to be at odds with one another. After Boris leaves, Sammy begins editing the camping trip footage, during which he finds evidence of Mitzi and Benny having an affair.
Hmm.
After weeks of harsh treatment towards her and Benny, Sammy and Mitzi get into a heated argument. In a fit of rage, she slaps him across the back, forcing a distraught Sammy to show her the compiled footage. He promises to keep their secret. I don't know if I would have.
No,
Uh,
no, that'd be the first thing I did. Okay, you know what, Dad?
Especially after she hit him. I
Right.
mean,
But Dad, I got something to show you. But even
the
like the article I sent you, apparently like him and his mother had like he always thought of her like an older sister instead of like more of a
mm,
mother, and so there's still that kind of aspect to it all. So
yeah. The following week, Bert receives another work promotion requiring another move to Saratoga, California. To keep their marriage intact, Benny stays in Phoenix, but not before gifting Sammy a new film camera. He continuously refuses the camera until he lets him pay $35 for it. Despite purchasing the camera, Sammy announces he'll never use it. Soon after arriving in his new neighborhood and school, Sammy becomes targeted by students Logan and Chad. There's always a Chad, who
yeah,
levy anti-Semitic abuse towards him. He also begins dating the devoutly Christian Monica. This was funny. While having dinner with the Fableman, she suggests Sammy film their ditch day at the beach, something he considers and eventually accepts after Monica tells him her father owns a 16mm Aeroflex camera that he would let him use. After finally moving from a rental to their newly purchased home, Mitzi and Bert announce their divorce due to her extreme depression and his discovery of the affair. This leaves the family heartbroken. At
and
prom,
pretty
Sammy.
split on like most of it.
Yeah, yeah, and in the article you sent, it said that in real life, his father allowed the children to believe it was his fault
Hmm.
because his wife couldn't have bared their rejection.
Right.
So, um,
Which good person. I don't know if I would have done that, but
right. At prom, Sammy declares his love for Monica and asks her to come with him to Hollywood after high school. Unable to throw away her own life's plans to attend Texas A&M University, she breaks up with him, leaving him despondent. Wonder if she ever thinks about that today.
right. I wonder if she thinks about that moment because he is Steven Spielberg, huge. So
The Ditch Day film is played in front of Sammy's peers to a rapturous response. It glorifies Logan and vilifies Chad. When Logan confronts Sammy, confused over his positive portrayal, they reach an understanding, cemented when Logan fights Chad off when he tries to attack Sammy. The next morning, Mitzi and Sammy talk about their future together. Just as she cannot give up her love for Benny, She tells Sammy not to give up his love for filmmaking. The following year, Sammy's living with Bert in Hollywood. He wants to drop out of college, but is unable to find work in filmmaking. Bert begrudgingly accepts his son's passion. After seeing a photograph of Mitzi and Benny together, Bert tells Sammy to keep on his path if it makes him happy. Sammy finally receives an offer from CBS to work on Hogan's Heroes. Knowing he's more interested in filmmaking, co-creator Bernard Fine invites him to meet director John Ford. One of his greatest filmmaking influences, he offers Sammy some pointers on framing. Newly invigorated, Sammy walks through the studio backlot as the camera frames the horizon to the center, contrary to Ford's advice, before ending by taking the advice and reframing the horizon at the far bottom. And that's the end of the film.
Dude, this is a great movie. That article I sent, the one with Tom Ford, he said that's, as far as his recollection remembers, Spielberg said that was all word for word how those conversations went. I was like, could you imagine, But
yeah, it was so funny though when he goes to Monica.
mm-hmm.
He goes to Monica's house and they go into her bedroom and she's got all these teen idols, right? There's like Elvis and Ricky Nelson and Frankie Avalon, but there's Jesus everywhere.
And it was very weird. Very weird.
They're sitting I think they were sitting on the floor. And she asks him to invite Jesus in. And then she takes it's really awkward looking. She just kind of breathes onto his mouth, like, breathe Jesus in. And then as she does, she kisses him and they start making out.
Yeah. It was very weird.
I'm like, okay.
Yeah, that's a scene.
Yeah,
I think my favorite parts for this movie were the one where we're seeing him behind the scenes planning the films, and then the World War II film that he made, a little short. I really enjoyed that, and then the reactions of the actor who Sam Reckner played Logan. They kept showing him while they were showing the little Ditch Day film. And then the hallway scene, it was really, really well done. Like they still hate each other, but like he respects him a little bit more. And it's like a big self-conscious thing with Logan, because he's like, I'm not this person that you made me out to be. He's like, it's like a whole, that's not who I am. I'm worse than that. Why did you make me a hero?
Yeah.
And he was like, I didn't even realize I was doing it, honestly. And then I thought it was very cool, though, that they did where people were sleeping, had their eyes closed. They filmed them like a bird was pooping in their mouth. That was great. I loved that bit. And I mean, they did too. I am curious to see how his relationship with his dad progressed through the years, because obviously he gets a job with Hogan's Heroes. But how did, Steven Spielberg is a huge name now. I wonder if his dad ever, I don't know how that relationship went after that.
Well, the dad lived till 2020, and I think his mom lived until 2014 or something like that, maybe.
Oh, so they all know his success then. So I'm curious about
that. They
know
his success. So it's a 2.5 hour movie. It doesn't feel 2.5
No, it flew by.
But I'll say that I do wish that we had gotten a little bit more there at the end of the Spielberg that we know.
Yeah, I felt like it was it ended too soon for sure, and I felt like it was like we've seen like part 1 of this story, and there should be like a part 2 movie. But as far as I know, they're not making another one, which this was written and directed by Spielberg. So, but man, I'm trying to look now actually at because this is everything we're watching up until the Oscars. I think this one, I'm going back and forth between Elvis and this one as my favorite one for Best Picture, because both are great and they kind of do the same thing. I think I'm a little bit higher on Elvis, just because I think they did a better job of start to finish than this one did. But man, this was really, really well done though, and I really did enjoy this one, and I'm glad that. And I thank you again for sending me the code because this is a good one to watch, and I've been really mad if we didn't watch it now that after seeing it.
Right. Um, if the fanboy in me wants Elvis to win.
Right.
If it can't win, I would like for this to win.
Yeah. I mean,
I
from
think
everything like acting, cinematography, all of it, I feel like this was well. As far as cinematography goes, what was it? The war movie, All Quiet on the Western Front, did
mhm,
great. Like, did really good on that one. But I
I
prefer
could.
this story than that one.
I think All Quiet wins.
Hmm.
If I had to predict on what I think will happen, I want Elvis to win, and this would be my backup
Right.
if Elvis couldn't win. But I could see him going All Quiet. I think it would be the first time of a repeat winner.
Could you
So I
imagine
don't think.
though? Could you just imagine that happening? A remake, a remaster, whatever
Yeah,
you want to call it.
it'd be interesting for sure. Um, but yeah, really good movies, and like you said, we're not sure how things are gonna play out. We're planning the next show.
Mm.
Oscars are gonna kind of mess with that. Uh,
If we
but we
live
do know,
react to some of it, it'll have to be on Patreon
yeah,
because we'll definitely get claimed and don't want to do that.
no, no, no. Uh, the next movie we're gonna watch is Babylon, which I think came out this last year.
Hmm.
I think it's also been up. Has it been up for some awards as well?
I don't think on the Oscars.
Yeah, I think it's been up for something elsewhere.
Yeah,
Um, so that'll be good. I do want to watch The Whale at some point.
I do
I did.
too. We need to. I'm gonna add that to our list so we don't ever forget about it. Movies to watch. Okay, The Whale, because that's the one with what's his name in it.
Brendan Fraser.
And I hope he wins Best Actor. I haven't seen the
He's not.
movie.
Is he up for Best Actor?
I think so. Let me pull that back up because
I
I
can't.
just had that. Let's see. Actor in a
And I'm
leading role, Brendan Fraser.
okay. And I know what you said. What you said about Tar, but I'm probably gonna give it a shot at some point.
Oh, I for sure give it a shot. It's
I'll see if I make it further than you.
yeah, because just let me know how it ends. I still don't understand what the story it was or is,
Okay.
but trying to
Yeah.
think. Scream 6 comes out this week though.
Yeah, and I was thinking about that during the week, so I thought, man, it'd be kind of cool to go see that at theaters, but
Mhm.
I just, I know I can't take off at this
Yeah.
point to see it.
We're gonna have to. I do want to see that in theaters though.
The only thing I could do Saturday.
I'm trying to think. Let me look at my schedule. We might be able to make that happen.
Okay.
I need to remind me when we get off of here to look at the schedule. I don't work that week. I work this weekend, so
But there is no movie news,
mm-mm.
and Scream 6 on March 10th is the only notable release.
Mario Day.
Mario Day.
Mm-hmm. Have you been playing any games this week?
I did play another hour and a half or 2 hours of The Quarry,
Mm.
so I made some more
Chipping away at that
progress.
one.
Yeah.
Destiny 2 Lightfall came out. I maybe put 20 hours into that this week. Just today I played maybe 5. Like it's been nonstop playing it, and it's been getting a bunch of complaints story wise that's not that great as Witch Queen was last year. But I thought it was fine. Like I don't think it was the best one they've ever done, no, but not deserving of all the hate they had. But a really good game. I'm back in. Can't stop playing it. I tried Wolong the Game Pass Dark Soulsy game. I'm just not. I can't play those kind of games. I'm just not good at them. I don't have the patience for it. So I was like, I just deleted off my Xbox and went from there. But we only have one news story, which is quite funny to me. Esports, we know, is coming to the Olympics for the year of 2024. This past week, the Olympic Games did release what is going to be in the esports category. A lot of people are thinking, League of Legends, maybe Call of Duty, Overwatch, your big, CSGO, your big esports games.
Gonna be FIFA?
No, it's going to be worse. We have got the games lineup is, and this is from the official Twitter of the Olympics: archery, baseball, chess, cycling, dance, motorsport, sailing, tennis, and taekwondo.
Do they understand what esports are?
I'm going to say no. Everyone says, so what are they going to bring out Wii Sports or something? And that's what the esports is going to be, because none of chess, just play regular chess. Like, there's no, why is that an esports thing? I don't understand that. Baseball, archery they already have. Baseball they already have now. Cycling they already have. I mean, sailing they already have. Taekwondo they already have. I don't understand. And no one knows what games are they playing, because these are not esports games.
I mean, baseball, it would have to be MLB The Show, right? I would think.
You would think, unless is someone making an Olympic Games esport game, like an actual, this is what you have to play, because this took the gaming world by storm, because it was what? I don't. League of Legends, your esports majors and stuff like that, which is what everyone thought was going to be brought in, because that is esports. That's what brings in the most money out of any of these things. But you're going to Wii Sports Resorts games. I don't know. We don't even know what games these are.
The Olympic Committee is fired.
Yeah, they are completely out of touch, and I don't understand why this is happening. But this is not esports and what needs to be done with esports.
If it was April 1st, we would have a reason for that.
Correct, and that bothers me. So I don't know what's going on. But yeah, that's esports for the Olympics. Notable releases this week: Peaky Blinders, The King's Ransom comes out on Quest 2 on March 9th, which I may or may not be getting. Depends how expensive it is, because I've seen footage or gameplay of it, and it looks great. And I love Peaky Blinders, so might as well. Just depends on the price. If it's too expensive, I'm not doing it. For ladies and gentlemen, that has been this week's episode of the Nerdwide podcast. Don't forget, next week is going to be a little bit different. We will post once we decide what we're going to do on our social medias. On Twitter, you can follow that at Nerdwide, at Nerd_wide. Facebook, just search in Nerdwide Podcast or Nerdwide. That's the first thing that pops up. Follow us on those. We will let you know what we're going to do there. Don't forget to share on all your favorite social media platforms. And forget to rate and review this podcast or whatever podcasting service you use on YouTube, Spotify, whichever one it is. But ladies and gentlemen, that has been this week's episode of the Nerdwide podcast. We hope you enjoyed the Fabelmans and the Last of Us review and the Triangle of Sadness as much as we did. Let us know which one you think is going to win the Oscars for Best Picture this year. Like we said, I think I would like Elvis to win. Both of us would like Elvis to win. I think Fabelmans potentially could win it. But who knows? It could be Tar, and I am completely out of touch in what the critics and the Oscars think. But ladies and gentlemen, that has been this week's episode of the Nerdwide podcast, and we cannot wait to talk to you next week, which will be almost the finale of Last of Us. We'll have to see what we're doing there. But enjoy the Oscars. Let us know what you think down in the comments down below, and we will see you then.
Later, guys.